じゃあ早速今夜付き合ってもらうわよ。ちょうどよかったわ。やられた。
Hi there, everyone. Scott and Lars back with another review and analysis for the Apothecary Diaries, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And in this episode, we have ghost stories. Woohoo!
We have an extra spooky one for everyone today. Especially, well, not as spooky for Maomao, where we find out, but Maomao still got a bit of a fright by the end of it.
Yeah, she did. And it leaves you wondering, what did we just witness? But one thing that we do know that we have witnessed is that a frog is coming up real soon in the show. People will finally be in on the joke. But if you want to be able to claim your own specially illustrated frog from Camille before the joke is revealed, if you're an anime only, then please make sure that you comment with the correct number of frogs down below. First person to do so will receive their very own frog and join the illustrious Brotherhood of Frogs.
So how about we start, kind of describe the episode then. So we kind of start out with more of Mao's shenanigans, because previous episode, she, as kind of a joke, she was given the shed as a room as a punishment, and Maomao was more than happy about that. But as they're getting new servants in, namely Haku, Koku, and Sekyu, which are three sisters that look very much alike, they wanted to make sure that Maomao actually slept in the right place and didn't feel like, they didn't want the new servants to feel like there was a pecking order that they had to worry about, in my opinion. Anyway, Lady Yinghua, she ends up with a night free, and she ambushes Maomao and drags her off to this secret meeting in the middle of the night where they're supposed to wear like scarves over their heads and hold on to candles as they sit in this mysterious circle. And it's revealed that they're there to listen to ghost stories that each one of them in this circle has to tell. And they go around the circle, and there's some pretty interesting stories that they talk about. And Memo kind of points out that like a bunch of them sound like stuff she's heard, rumors she's heard within the Rare Palace, but some of them are from like people's hometowns. Shisui is there, and Shisui has one of the like the darker, the scarier ones where you've got this wandering monk lost in the middle of the night, and then he finds this house, and he gets invited in the house and given a room and place to rest. And to bless the family for his help, he decides to chant a Buddhist sutra. But as he's chanting it, the wife comes back in with a blade to kill him. And because he's chanting the sutra and being holy, she can't see him. So she goes back and kills the husband. And then, like, after it quiets down, he exits the house and finds two dead bugs and ends up walking away, continuing to do the sutra to help protect him. And then it's at that moment we get a close-up of Shisui's face where Maomao kind of gets a flash of memory. She's like, for some reason Shisui's face looks familiar in some different way. And then it goes to Maomao's story, and she ends up telling the story about some mysterious lights in the graveyard and these men go investigate it and find a grave robber, and everybody at the place is kind of disturbed by it, but they don't think it's as scary as the others, and they're like, you should have picked a different one. But the whole time Maomao's like getting real dizzy and like hot, and she doesn't realize that the fire in the fireplace and like the windows not being open were poisoning the air, and everybody was passing out and falling asleep. And they finally hear the story from the lady who set up this whole thing, who's this older lady who'd been in the Rare Palace for a long time, about how the previous emperor had deflowered all these maidens and they were stuck within the Rare Palace, and that it was now their time to die, kind of idea. But like Maomao like snaps out of it and realizes that everybody's getting poisoned as she like throws the window open and helps get everybody safe. And the lady that like set up everything disappears, and it's kind of, we're kind of led to believe that she was the ghost of the lady who set up these ghost story things for a good while. And then Maomao and Lady Yinghua like retreat, and then they have another interaction with Shisui because she wanted to know a bit more information about one of the stories, which was about this mom and her son that ended up getting food from the forest and passing away. And there was kind of a warning about like how like back in time probably had somebody pass away from the food, and so people are like, oh yeah, you should be careful in this area. But then as time passed, it went from be careful of to this place is forbidden, like you'll be cursed if you go there kind of idea. And then very end of the episode, we have Maomao having to deal with Lady Yinghua in the same bed because Lady Yinghua is too scared to sleep by herself. And Maomao's like, this is just too hot. Just get me out of here. And then we get one like serious look at Jinshi. Like he's just gotten done with a cup of tea, and it's like as he puts the cup of tea down, it feels like it's like the final nail in the coffin, and like he's set and ready to do something. And then the episode ends.
Yeah, this is an interesting episode in that it really didn't feel like it was progressing anything all that big as far as the story goes. And I actually feel that that's absolutely fine. There will be those people who are going to say that this is more of a filler episode, but for me, given how much great development and all these different plot points that we've been given and all these different threads and mysteries, it's nice to actually slow down even a little bit more and allow all of these different characters a chance to show off their personalities in a very different setting and share some engaging ghost stories. And we get a lot of really subtle development for the world of the Rear Palace, for the characters of these women, and we are reminded of the environment that they're in and of the events of the past that have influenced a lot of them and have kind of brought them to that point. This episode doesn't ignore it. And so rather than taking a break, it slows things down and just gives you a chance to relax a little bit in this world and just bask in it, which is good to see.
Well, but I also like how it points out a lot of what we've seen up to this point, because there's a lot of, I mean, good, but mostly negative emotions attached to like what's going on in the Rear Palace. Like, yeah, like they're here to like gain favor and possibly become the new empress, but there's also a chance that that won't work out and you're going to be stuck in basically what amounts to a prison for the rest of your life. And that kind of uncertainty, that kind of darkness and fear like comes out to play a lot. And we've seen that over and over and over again as people have interacted within the Rear Palace. But now, especially where we catch a glimpse into what's going on in the past. I like, though, that we have this kind of ghost story like meeting that seems like it's been going on for years now, as a way to bring out a bit of like catharsis, bit of relief, a bit of stress relief, specifically like for all of these ladies that are stuck in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. And this is one of those little world building details that grants a lot of power and autonomy to the other women of the Rear Palace. This is something that we've talked about in multiple videos about the women's freedom, their autonomy, their identity. And normally that comes in relation to some of the bigger moments where the women do something really cool, or where they stand up for themselves, or where they fight for something that they really believe in. This is an instance where the women who are more of the background characters have done something that allows them to come together, to share, to release some pent-up energy, and as you said, to receive catharsis. Like, horror provides catharsis in a very unique way by like frightening you, which releases all of these emotions And then when you come down, it refocuses you in a completely different way. And it's a kind of entertainment that can distract you from all of the pressures that are put on these women. Every single one of them, as you said, is pretty much in a really beautiful prison. And there's this hierarchy, there's these expectations, there's all this work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's tradition, there is honor, blah, 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 all of this heaped up on these young women. That's a lot to go through. And so these young women are finding comfort in an entertaining way with each other. And that's another way of exuding and exercising what autonomy they do have and watching out for themselves, which is a form of reasserting their identity.
I did have a funny thought in the middle of that, though, where the rear palace is basically what people feel like high school is like, even though it's not. Is like high school is a lot. There's a lot more freedom in high school than any of these ladies are experiencing. But like teenagers get it in their head that, oh, this is life and death, and this is like so important, when you could be in a 16th century harem and meeting expectations could be the only way for you to survive. You kind of have to readjust your expectations there.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, my high school was basically built like a fortress in a prison, quite literally, but I got to leave each day. These women, they don't. Yeah, they're stuck in there.
Well, I know of some high schools that they are a prison and you're not allowed to leave each day.
Yeah. So, yeah, these women find themselves in a not so great situation. Beautiful, yes, it's really not that great, especially for a lot of young women who would rather be out there finding the loves of their lives, or doing something fun, or pursuing a potential career. I mean, that's what Maomao wants. Maomao wanted to just serve the terms of her contract, be released after 2 years, and then be given the chance to go back to the red light district and continue being an apothecary. That option's been taken from her because of how deep she's now gotten in with the royal family and the dealings of the rear palace. And so,
well, and that's another thing that was brought forward in this episode, because even though it feels like this like revenge ghost story where the lady who set this whole meeting up wanted to kill them and was a ghost that was like seeking vengeance, there's a real possibility it was an actual person that wanted to take Maomao out. I mean, it's left ambiguous. We don't know that for sure, but the more realistic explanation is that in itself, that like this was a targeted attack against Maomao.
And if that is indeed the case, this is something that has been warned of throughout this season as she's gotten more and more integrated into the machinations of the royal palace. From the emperor saying, I want your help with the shrine, to the Empress Dowager wanting her help to solve the mystery of whether or not she had cursed her husband, the previous emperor. And that episode ends with her warning Jinji about what might happen if he isn't careful about the ones that he cares about. Maomao is out in the open. She is free game for anyone who wishes to target the emperor and his family, and especially because she's been doing so much to protect the emperor and his family.
There is a counterpoint here, because Maomao was kind of invited last minute to this, so Maomao might have been just unfortunately there at the right time. And so it could have been somebody else that was being targeted in this case, which the only three characters in this group that we even know of is Maomao, Li Yinghua, and Shisui.
Yeah, so
Shisui was already there, so like, could it have been targeted against Shisui for some reason?
There's the possibility. Or if there is another one of the women who's been targeted, we might not find out about that until later, if that is indeed the case. Or coming back to the idea of catharsis, maybe someone's just be all like, I hate all you young ladies and the potential that you might one day escape. I'm too old and now stuck here. I'm just going to kill you.
That there is that possibility as well. there is that possibility as well. That I loved having a good like in between episode like this, because like we're not having to deal with the major mysteries, but like we're still very grounded in the reality that this story possesses at the same time.
Yeah, it's just a good episode. And this is something that longer form stories can definitely do and probably should do. Because if everything that you're doing is just to advance the plot, advance the plot, advance the plot, advance the character, advance the character, advance the character, we're marching on to war. If it's just always, always, always marching forward, yes, progress is happening. Hopefully character progression is happening as well, but the world isn't then opened up enough to the audience to feel like they can immerse themselves in it and that they want to continue with this story. Because the more that people come to love not just the characters and are interested in the plot, but the more that they get to know the world and the people that populate it, the more they want to stick around.
Yeah, no, that's a big part of it. Is you want to have people fall in love with like the characters, the setting, the plot, like make people fall in love with all of it, and you'll find yourself with very large fan base very quickly.
And it's just kind of fun also having a little bit of a spooky element. From a writer's perspective, this is definitely one of those cases where I feel like the original author is kind of flexing a little bit. Just like, yes, I can write murder mystery. Yes, I can write romantic situations. I can also write horror. And because people maybe might not let me write a horror story because I have to finish this, or maybe because I get typecasted as this kind of an author, well, guess what? In the middle of your Sherlock Holmes Apothecary Diaries story, I'm going to throw in a couple of horror stories.
I mean, that is another advantage of like long form writing. You can throw something like this in, but yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying.
I just have to say, the story with the monk, that was legitimately spooky. I've seen this episode now twice, and the first time I watched it, I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of creepy." Second time I watched it, like I was just paying maybe a little bit more attention, and I was like, "No, this is actually this is genuinely spooky." If I were to hear this story like around a campfire, out in the middle of the woods, or go to like some spooky house in Japan and have this story told to me, I would get some heebie-jeebies. Like that was a good spooky story.
I agree. That one was pretty good.
And one more quick thing. Actually, it's kind of two things in one. Maomao telling a grotesque story about a bunch of young men finding a grave robber who was suspected to be a ghost is so on point for her because how practical she is. Like it's if she had told it differently, it would be a scary story. But because of how she told it, it just ended up being a gross story, which is again absolutely on point for straightforward Maomao. The second thing is that there's actually a little, I think that there might be maybe a smidge of commentary in the contrast between the two ghost stories that we get in full and then Maomao's grave robbing story, that guts and disgustingness does not equate horror, and not all horror stories need guts and disgusting stuff in order to be spooky. All right, so with all of that being said, those have been our thoughts, our review, and our breakdown of the Apothecary Diaries episode. Where are we on now? Episode 34. So we hope that you enjoyed these little spooky stories that you guys see in this episode, and we would love to hear your thoughts and comments about it as well. Sound off in the comment section below, and again, the first person to comment with the correct number of frogs will win their own illustrated frog. We haven't had anyone claim them in a couple of weeks, and we hope that someone will because they're awesome frogs. And also because we will be getting some frogs coming up real soon in the show. So with all of that being said, if you'd like to support everything that we do here at our channel, please check out the books that we have published. Links for them are in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible, sometimes spooky adventure that we love to call writing. And until the next video, y'all, choose.
Okini.
次はお前たちの番だ